Hello. Hello, we've got about 5 minutes before we'll start. Just giving you a bit of a time warning. Thank you very much and hope you enjoy the night. Where's Charlie? Run on time.
That's an expectant hush. I like that. First off, I'd like to welcome you all here. For those of you who don't know who I am, there might be one or two of you, Charlie Cowie. On behalf of the Regent Theatre, the Hokitika Community Trust and the Hokitika Guardian that are sponsoring this event, a very warm welcome to you all. Now, as you know, in small towns, it can be a bit hard to find someone unbiased, so we had a bit of a hunt round. We managed to find a bloke that grew up here. He's been away for a few years, went off to become a professional golfer. He's just in the last couple of months, he's brought his wonderful Auckland bride back down and shifted into town. And he hasn't been back here long enough to make any enemies yet. So, folks, if you'd give a very rousing welcome to our MC tonight, Stuart Thompson.
Thank you, people. Now, the health and safety, which we always have to go by, in case of fire, alarm will sound and a message will be broadcast. Please leave the theatre in an orderly manner by the nearest exit and gather under the photo corner veranda on the other side of Tankard Street. In case of an earthquake, that's for my wife, right? Drop, cover and hold, and then leave the theatre when instructed. Gather in the centre of the Tankard Street or proceed to high ground if the earthquake is long and strong. Theatre is within the Hokitika tsunami zone, right? Thank you. Any questions? Thank you. Right. That was the first thing, right. So, there's always a few, that's right, don't worry, right. Good evening. On behalf of the Hokitika Community Trust, it is my honour to welcome you all here to the Hokitika Regent to Meet the Candidates evening. This is an evening designed to help you better understand those standing in the upcoming elections. My name's Stuart Thompson. Last time I was on this stage was 40 years ago, and I was singing on the Pirates of Penzance. And just on that, there's a show next week with the Hokitika Dramatic Society, right? So I just thought I'd have a little plug for that. If anybody wants to have a good laugh or something like that, and it's always a good show, so there's my little plug, right? I'm proud to be back in this fantastic town, right? I've been away for 35 years, and it's still like a fabulous place to live. I would like to thank all the candidates for making themselves available tonight. I'm looking forward to learning a little more about each of them. I did send an email out and called. There was just a little bit of short notice, only a week's notice. That will be rectified the next time I do this in 3 years' time. So, rules of the night. Development West Coast will go first. Regional Council, then we'll have a few quick questions for them. Then we'll have district councils, mayoral candidates, and then we'll open up questions for the district council. Candidates will be presented in alphabetical order that I tell you are. Each candidate gets to have 2 minutes to speak, and mayoral candidates get 4. Nearing the end of their time, a bell, ding ding, will indicate, and they've got 30 seconds. Then we will ask the next candidate to stand. After all candidates have spoken, there will be some questions directed to the candidates from the floor and other questions that people have had time to put in. We expect the audience to remain calm and respectful throughout the evening. So please, if I could ask you to silence your cell phones, right, because the movie's just about to start. Otherwise, without further delay, may I introduce your first candidate tonight, Glynis Byrne.
Thank you to the organisers for tonight's event. Now, there seems to be some confusion about how Development West Coast operates in the district. This was obvious by the many replies to my social media posts requesting me to fix roads and footpaths. Unfortunately, I'm not in that position. However, while funding transport infrastructure projects is not a DWC can participate in, assisting in the development of a sound transport and logistics strategy to identify and support future transport requirements fits well with DWC's objectives, which are to promote economic benefit to the coast. My first objective in this role will be open lines of communication and promoting the opportunities available to all Westlanders and not just the chosen few. I have a strong academic background in transport, law, commerce and logistics, and I look forward to using this knowledge to steer a more desirable pathway for transport on the coast, be it air, rail, road or sea. Opportunities are endless. My previous roles as Community Development Officer and Roads Coordinator have allowed me the opportunity to engage with communities and industry stakeholders throughout the West Coast. This, coupled with my university qualifications and knowledge of strategic planning, confirms that I am well appointed to represent Westland on the board of DWC. I look forward to lobbying for Westland, developing and promoting opportunities and seeking sustainable outcomes for the future of Westland. I pride myself with the fact that my governance training and experience has equipped me with the knowledge to contribute effectively around the table. Unlike some other candidates, I have attended every meeting from Westport to South Westland. I have done the mahi. Please honour me with your vote and I will repay you with my drive, dedication, nation. Your tick will help flick the switch for change. Thank you.
Bloody hell. Well, if tonight's that lady, fantastic. 2 minutes, 0.01 second. Well done, congratulations. Right, I hope the whole night goes as smooth as that. Right, next, can we please have Deborah Magna? Is it Magna? Deborah Magna?
Good evening. My name's Deborah Magna and I'm standing for Regional Council in Westland. I'm a farmer near Hokitika and I've just completed my first term on the Regional Council. My achievements during this term include driving positive changes in the finance, IT and risk management areas of Council, and I've been the chair of the Risk and Assurance Committee. As a business person and parent, the importance of retaining our economic base and having a vibrant community. Why am I standing for Regional Council? Primarily, I'm keen to ensure that our region is sensibly and sustainably managed. I have science and financial to enable me to understand the policies and workings of the Regional Council and to contribute very effectively to its governance. I also believe in a path of continuous improvement for our environment, but I want to ensure that this occurs in an economically sustainable way for our communities. I've lived on the West Coast for 27 years and I know that I'm representative of many of our community, and I would offer a diverse voice on this council. It is essential that any rate rises are kept to an absolute minimum, and excellent financial management will achieve that. We all know that it's vitally important that we have a resilient infrastructure that will enable us to stay safe and keep our businesses operational, even when we have large rainfall events. In this last term, we have been successful in getting government funding for many projects, and we need more of this. I'm happy to lead policy to find cost-effective ways to reduce our environmental and climatic footprint in the region. What are my personal values? I believe in honest and open local government. I believe in listening to the concerns of the public and communicating effectively with people. And I believe in a fair deal for all the ratepayers and residents. Thank you.
Fantastic. Can I next please have up, and I have a question for this candidate after he finishes, Mr. Peter Haddock. Just giving you a bit of a heads up.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. My name's Peter Haddock. I'm a fourth generation West Coaster. I'm an employer and ratepayer in the Westland District. I have a wealth of knowledge, having worked as a contractor and engineer on the coast for my entire life. I've promoted in rights. I have a strong local body governance, having served 15 years on the Grey District Council and on the Regional Transport Committee. I lobbied hard for the Turamakau and Ahara Bridge replacements, the Arthurs Pass to Minga Bluff Road realignment, and route security and passing lanes on our highway network. I was part of the Turamakau Bridge and Messenger Park rallies, promoting tourism and the importance of our primary industries here. I'm putting my name forward to represent your community because I believe there are real problems at the Regional Council. There appears to be a loss of unity amongst councillors, which sends a bad signal to government. There are problems as long-term experienced staff have and continue to leave. This has resulted in planning and consenting delays being affect government funding, which is becoming strained. High-costing consultants are being employed to do work, staff costing our rating districts. Less physical work will be done for your rates money. I stand for accountability, honesty and unity at the council table. If elected, I will endeavour to get council back on track. I'll fight for local democracy and the rights for our residents. Bring council functions back in-house and do away with expensive consultants. Government and iwi to secure government funding for flood and sea protection schemes to protect our communities against the effects of climate change, and set policy to ensure the best outcomes for our communities and ratepayers. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak this evening.
Now, don't go away, Peter.
Thanks,
All right.
Stuart.
You are finishing a term on the council. You live in Greymouth, yet you are standing for the regional council in the Westland seat. Why are you not standing for the Greymouth seat? How are you going to understand my views as a resident of Westland, and how will you represent me? Yeah, that was it. That was the question.
It was. That's a fair question. Thank you, Stuart. Is that microphone on?
Yeah, it should be.
Yep. Yeah, that's a fair question. I live 10 minutes north of the boundary. I am a ratepayer and have a residence in a property in Okarito. I haven't stood for I stood for Grey District Council for 15 years and decided 3 months ago I'd had enough, that I'd done my term. But I was approached to stand for the Regional Council. I believe we've got good candidates in Greymouth, and I've been concerned with what sort of happened. There's been a breakaway group. I think it's good for local democracy. I'm available at any time. My phone's on. Email. I'm only too pleased to fight for people of this district and our region. Thank you.
Next, West Coast Regional Council will be Mr. Stuart Challenger.
Thank you, and thank you to my previous speakers. I'd like to almost say, can I steal Deborah's speech and swap her name for mine? But anyway, I've got my own speech here. So the reason I first stood for West Coast Regional Council in 2013 was because I looked at the current council laws and saw that we're represented by 4 miners, 2 dairy farmers and a retired local CEO. And I felt that was not a true representation of who the West Coast is. Yes, we're miners, we're farmers, but we're also mechanics, shop workers, students and teachers, professionals. We should be represented by as many of these people who can fit into the 7 councillor seats around the table, and we should not be just represented by a majority of 1 or 2 factions. I have skills to offer that will help the West Coast grow and prosper. I'm a civil engineer with experience in stormwater and flood management, and I'm currently working in land development. I travel throughout the West Coast with my job, and I believe that I get a feeling of what the issues are around the coast. One of the big issues that the West Coast is facing is threats from the rivers and the sea due to climate change. This is not something that we can be solved quickly. It requires a multi-generational approach. We need to decide who pays for this. Some of it has to be public good, so that's the local and regional councils. Some of it should be the government. Perhaps some of it can be the insurance companies. And some of it must be those who are being protected. But in order for it to be fair, people have to know the risks. Our waters are some of the best in the country and we need to keep it that way. But we have issues with some of our urban waterways and with introduced weeds in some of our lakes. I want to work with the district councils and the locals to help improve our waterways. I believe that regional council has too many meetings behind closed doors. Yes, there are times when it's necessary to have public excluded meetings, but I feel that I've run out of time. Thank you.
I apologise there. I probably would have let Charlie go on a little bit longer, but he's a bit like that. Right. Next. Alan Hurley, please. Yeah. This is what my run sheet, this is what they gave me.
I'll just do my housekeeping.
Oh, that's mine, don't worry about mine. You're more important.
My name's Alan Hurley and I'm standing in the Hokitika ward. Vicky and I have raised a family in Hokitika and contributed to the economy of Westland. A number of people asked me if I was to stand for council, and after consideration, I've decided to put my name forward as I believe that I offer a level of common sense and competence that will benefit Western District. No one can say that I'm afraid to ask the hard questions. A lot of businesses and others have just come through 2 years of hardship. One business owner told me that their rates have gone up 71% in 7 years. Rate increases on top of rising food and petrol are making it pretty hard out there for a lot of families, pensioners and businesses. Unfortunately, none of us can wave a magic wand and make more money appear. We need to limit rate increases. How do we do this? Council needs to have a line-by-line look at its annual and long-term plan and make sure that what is scheduled and budgeted for is actually required and not just a feel-good project. Council is a pretty complex operation with multiple income streams and cost centres. It isn't a simple operation, however, it is a business that needs to operate by cutting the cloth to suit. Western already has the highest rates on the coast, which isn't exactly a statistic to be proud of. Communication. Things like the Cass Square fence, Revel Street one-way, Canary bollards, and now charging St Vinny's to dump rubbish wouldn't be rearing their heads unless there was a disconnect in communication between staff and council. This needs to be looked at, as it should be an area of concern for all of us. Maybe a way to do this is by review of the council committee structure and then realigning with areas of operation. CCOs. Is the current CCO structure the best way to operate them? Does council receive an adequate dividend from the CCOs? This should be discussed. 3 waters. I'm basically opposed to this as I think our assets are in pretty good shape with a good maintenance program. However, if there's a benefit to the ratepayer, then I will at least listen to the argument. If elected, I will act in the ratepayer's best interest, and a vote for Alan Hurley is a vote for a councillor. I've run out of time as well. But thank you.
Well, that's one of the questions that was given. Given the council's CCO's spending almost as much or more money every year than WDC and CCO carries millions in debt, so what extent do you believe ratepayers are benefiting from CCOs, and would you support a complete review of them? Yes. Yep. Okay, right, well that... Okay, good. Okay, well, I'll just throw it out there before I put you all under the bus, right? Right, next we have Stephen Gillett.
Good evening. My name is Stephen Gillett and I'm standing as a candidate in the Hokitika ward. So cut to the chase, why am I standing and why should you vote for me? Well, just like you, I've been extremely frustrated with the current council that has agreed to record rate rises, increased council debt, undertaking capital spending in projects without proper mandate, is very secretive and generally ignored the community when it wants to engage and advocate. This is not the democracy and accountability that we expect and deserve. There are a lot of challenges coming to local government, and you'll be aware that this involves the new 3 water entities, changes to the Resource Management Act, and a complete review of local government democracy. So the old ways of doing things are just not going to work. So you simply cannot vote for anything that gives you the same as we already have. We need new people with the energy, ideas and skills to lead that change and who are there and doing this for the right reasons. Not the existing people or those aligned to the old ideas. I'm standing because I care, I have the time, and I want to do something about the issues we face. And because I'm just like you at present, angry, frustrated, worried about ballooning costs, and simply want someone to listen to our concerns and take them seriously. And why should you vote for me? Well, firstly, I have the experience from my business background and qualifications to deal with the complex technical and financial detail that's going to be piled in this new council. But more importantly, I'm also doing this for the right reasons. I have no personal agenda, links, or other financial gain by being a councillor. I'm completely independent. So if you agree that the old way of doing things hasn't worked and that change is needed, then it's pretty simple, really. You need to vote for me because I will take up that challenge on behalf of all of you and will remain truly independent.
Thank you. Right, can we next have Mr. Gray Eatwell?
Good evening, everybody. My name is Gray Eatwell and I'm standing for the Hokitika ward. Now, I did stand in the last election as a mayoral candidate, and at that time I was very humbled by the number of votes that I received from the people of Hokitika, and that is what has given me the inspiration to stand in this election to repay that loyalty. At that time, I actually had a card that I handed around. Some of you will have obviously seen it, and that's 3 years ago. And at that time, I was talking about bringing the truth to the council table. And candidly, I haven't seen a great deal of that in the last 3 years. But I also said, as one of my platforms, that we need to get back to basics. And when I said that, I meant that the council needed to uphold its statutory obligations, and that is to provide the core services and the amenities for us to run a successful and a safe community. That is what I mean by going back to basics. I also said, stop the unauthorised spending of our money. And I don't think I need to remind many of you that there's been quite a lot of our money spent, which has been, as previous speakers have said, been decided in secret meetings and so on. And my objective is to stop that practice. The card's a little bit out of date because the photo actually doesn't have a beard on it, and there's a phone number on the back that's not quite correct because we haven't got that phone anymore. But what I am going to say to you is if you vote for me in this election, I will certainly be doing my very best to uphold the statutory obligations of our council and look into the finances in a way that we find now that is not actually always available to councillors.
Okay. Ooh, terrible. Right, can we next have Mr. Paul Davidson?
So my name's Paul Tanker Davidson. Once again, I'm seeking your vote to re-elect me. I understand the frustration of these last 3 years. We've got to get better with process. Feedback from the community is people aren't comfortable with the current debt level and the cost of rates. That's why I want to costly project reviewed. It's an ongoing struggle to provide our district with the needs and the wants. It all has to be affordable. Decisions on sewage disposal, flood protection and major purchases must take into account the cost and pressure of the community who have to fund it. It's wrong to make promises that can't be kept. It's paramount to keep the community in mind during the decision process. After all, it's the community that's paying the bills. The community expects integrity, and that's what I offered and provided. I have no hesitation in providing that going forward. Those who know me know I am my own man, providing access and representation without prejudice. On balance, most people would accept that there are more frequent and intense weather events threatening our communities. I believe Council's number one priority is to do more to future-proof their communities against the impacts of climate change. The only way through this is working together with trusted parties, a process where we work together with regional council, local iwi, the private sector, insurance companies, and most of all, you, the people. We can do it. In some places we are doing it, but we have a long way to go, and we all have a role to play. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now, can I please have from First Lady from the Northern Ward, Ms. Jane Neal.
Tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou katoa. Ngā mihi Stuart. Thank you all for coming along this evening. I do encourage you also to contact any of us individually if you'd like further discussion on any of the subjects. It's not just about this one evening. Westland is a very special place. It's a unique place, and I've been very privileged to be a councillor here for the last 6 years. Living in Westland, that's in Okarito, Hokitika and Ruatapu, for the last 38 years, has given me a good understanding of communities, the landscapes and the dynamics. During that time, I've worked in education, tourism, hospitality, construction, youth, family work, and currently at West Coast Riding for the Disabled, which involves a large multitude of areas and skills. I've volunteered in sports, arts and well-being. Most important, communication and effective, fair consultation between council staff, councillors and residents from Aotearoa to Jacksons Bay will lead to improved relationships and increased efficiency. I strongly believe in the rights of those who are sometimes unheard. Our community is diverse, we need to hear them all, and this is cause for celebration, the diversity. Planning for the future, this must take into account climate change, the environment and Te Tiriti. The new council will have some big discussions and decisions to make around Paki Waitara, around council buildings and the racecourse, and surely some more to come up. Within these discussions, it's going to be vital to keep the rates and council services affordable. Generally, I disagree with council competing with the private sector and with over-investing in ideas that may not prove worthwhile. We don't want that risk. Finally, again, thank you all for attending, and please feel welcome to contact me. Kia ora.
Stand away from the mic. It's my mic. I'm new to this. Don't shoot the messenger just yet, Helen. Right. Next, can we please have Riley Burden? Not here. Okay. That's right. Right. So, mayoral candidates. Woohoo! Yeah, here we go. Can I please have Mr. Chris Rea? Chris Ray, sorry. Rea sounds good. It's like singer.
Well, isn't it fantastic to see the sun again, everyone? For those of you that don't know me, my name's Chris Ray. I'm a born and bred West Coaster from Ross, and I've spent some time in Greymouth and Christchurch gaining my mechanical, diesel and auto electrical apprenticeships. I've been in business for 17 years, running 2 small businesses, auto super shops in Hokitika, which I bought as a going concern, employing 3, and it now employs 9. I also own Cheddar Communication, which is a startup company soon to be employing 2. I feel running a business has given me the skills to manage cash flow and communicate with people, because with small business you're the HR person, customer complaints department, chief dishwasher, and also sometimes one of the Wiggles in the Christmas parade. Currently I'm a director at Western Holdings and an elected trustee of Development West Coast. My previous government roles include Destination Westland, West Coast Rural Fire Authority, Taipatini Polytechnic Council member, board chair of Western High School and Canary Primary School. I'm passionate about giving back to the community, and as such I've been a station officer at the Hokitika Volunteer Fire Brigade, coming up 25 years service. I'm also in the Ross Propago Club. I'm a brown belt in Sado Karate, but I haven't done that for a while, so don't test that one. And I'm also on my way to gaining my pilot's licence with the local Aero Club. I feel now is the time for change around the council table, as recently there's been a lack of direction at the top, resulting in some ad hoc decisions and poor performance. I believe Westland is a great place to live, work and play, but also needs to be affordable. The ratepayers of Westland shouldn't have to complain to get the council revisiting rates rises. The work should already be done on your behalf to get the balance between capital projects, R&M and nice-to-haves. I believe we cannot keep doing the same things and expect to get different results. Council needs to get the business as usual tasks right and be more customer focused around compliance without cutting corners. We need a mayor with good communication skills, business and governance skills that can bring the whole council together while listening to the ratepayer. For too long there has been division between the council and management team, and I feel this has created a culture that isn't serving us well. More time needs to be spent focusing on the future of Westland and developing a plan to get there. We need to revisit the long-term plan and make sure all aspects of council are aligned so that we are all paddling in the same direction. This way, when opportunities like the racecourse, Mountain Jay building come up, we can easily make an assessment whether these projects fit into the long-term plan. Now I could stand up here and say that I'm going to cap rate rises at 5%, but I know that if inflation continues at 6.9, we're either going to have to cut services or borrow more. We need to be finding ways to borrow less and live within our means. This will mean we need to take a different approach about how we fund the nice-to-haves. We will need to establish working groups within the community that work with the council to attract outside investment so that the ratepayer isn't continuously burdened. We need to stop conducting trials with curb and channeling and be more transparent about what council intends to do. We need a mayor that's part of the community and is there for the betterment of Westland. Everyone needs to be able to get the answers they're looking for without getting an OIA request, especially councillors, as when this happens it tells me that something's seriously wrong with the relationship between council and management. Let's get some clear direction, open communication and listen to what the people of Westland are telling us. And let's vote for Chris Ray.
Well, I've never met the guy before, but he's got my vote. No, sorry. No, I've got to hear everybody else first. Right, don't jump the gun here, pal. Right. Next, can we have Mr. Phil Patterson?
Yep, Phil Patterson here. I've been living in Westland since 1997. Got a bush block down in Harry. I'm running for mayor as I've had 5 aerial 1080 poison drops on my boundary, which has affected my health and quality of life. Maureen Pugh, when she was mayor, put in a ridgeline to ridgeline exclusion for water catchments. This has never been enforced. According to the manufacturer's instructions for 1080, it is an ecotoxin, and this is the thing here. And like this ecotoxin business is not being held out. It should not be dropped into waterways. And the district council is in charge of the waterways and is letting this happen. We've been following it around and taking them to court, blah, blah, blah. There's no accountability. We picked up 92 pallets out of Harold Creek last year and a 100-metre stretch of water in the creek, right in the creek. We GPSed all the baits and picked up all the baits but there's just baits all the way up the creek. Now people are getting sick, etc., all around the West Coast. We've got high rates of cancer, suicide, depression, motor neuron disease, the whole business. And the council is not doing its job in ensuring that this does not happen. The other issue is because they are in charge of drinking water. And the West Coast Regional Council, there's a lot of corruption involved. They are the ones that are, they've got Vector Control Services, which is plastering the whole place with TN80. They're also in charge with ensuring compliance, and until recently they set the conditions for the resource consents, and they all live in the same building, so there's no accountability at all. So it's just a disaster, and it's the elephant in the room, which no one ever talks about. And the other issue is glyphosate. That's being sprayed all along the roadsides, etc., etc. You see all the dead bits of vegetation all along the road, etc. That's proven as a carcinogenic as well, same as TN80. And they're just spraying it. Has no one ever read Rachel Carson's book, Silent Spring, where the bird life all died off in the States because of all the poisons they were dropping everywhere. And they're using 2,4-D as well here. It's the same they never learnt from Vietnam, Agent Orange being spread everywhere. And that was manufactured in New Zealand, in New Plymouth. We're shocking this country for this sort of thing. So that's my main issue, and that's what I'm campaigning on. And plus the fact that rates keep going up and up and up. There's way too much bureaucracy. You should do away with the regional council, cut down the bureaucracy, stick to core services, and yeah. And as far as being a mayor, I don't know anything about the job, but I tell you what, I'll find out quick. And I can't do a worse job than what's being done at the moment. So, yeah, that's me. Thanks.
I've just swapped votes, pal. Seriously. Right. So just as a question, I've been riding my push bike around town and I see all these no spray signs everywhere. Now I know what they're for. Thank you very much. Yes, I can see why people now do that. That's okay. Right. Next, can we please have Richard Osmiston?
Just put my camera on here in case it's dangerous, you know. Yeah.
No, there's no problem. This is Hokitika.
Yeah, but they're going to have a new countdown, right? Jeez, so people don't get assaulted. And then they're going to have, what are they having, armoured dairies now? I mean, is that the kind of solutions we want to our problems? Bollards outside dairies. I mean, that ain't going to fix it, is it, folks? Who to vote for? Don't vote for me. I live in Tasman. I'll vote for me in Tasman. I'm also running in 6 other regions. It's a hard choice. These are amazing people. I made the same speech, a similar one yesterday in Greymouth. Fantastic people, all prepared to put maybe their lives on the line for this job, to serve you, the community. Changing the seats, the deck chairs on the Titanic, doesn't change the course of the ship, does it? And that's where I come in. Just before I got off my bus half an hour ago, I do a bit of modelling for mental health. You know, it's good, but this is a McDonnell Douglas DC-10. Everybody know what that is? You remember Air New Zealand used to operate them? Big airliner. I used to fly these. I've got about 1,500 hours flying DC-10 and about 20 years as a licensed engineer on them. 42 years in total in airline aviation, and I now teach aircraft engineering at NMIT in the Polytech in Woodburn, in Blenheim. And as many of you will know, I've been for over 10 years promoting the abandonment of the monetary system and the adoption of a resource-based economy with everything free and everything voluntary. And when it's voluntary, that means the people that do the work have control as to what they do. No tentacles, no puppet strings from Wellington or America or anywhere else. We get what we want. And we see that today with St John's Ambulance, with bands and clubs and sports groups, the fire service. We will volunteer for what's important. And we won't volunteer to produce methamphetamine or Coca-Cola or the things that we don't want in our society. People just won't back that stuff up. But the way we're going with the money system, you can have the best people you can choose and it won't make any difference. I'm going to vote for Latham because I think he's got that eye on the future. But that's what we need, and we've got to give these guys the tools that they can work with. My career in airline aviation, when I'm teaching aircraft engineering, there's no cross fingers, there's no hope for a better season, hope the weather's going to be good, hope the market's kind to us. Forgive me, that's all bollocks. That's not what's going to keep the wings on. We have the capacity now to predict the future. We can design the future, and we've done it in aviation for 100 years, and it's been hard won. These make a big smoking hole in the ground when it goes wrong, believe me, but the systems are there. We can do the same for our society. We've got the technology, the materials, the science, the learning. We understand psychology and sociology, how the planet works, how the biosphere works, how our mind works, how community works. We didn't know that when this was all being set up, and we don't need money anymore. We need integrity. And that's what I love about my job teaching aircraft engineering, because those young people, they want to know which bolt, Richard, and I don't want you to sell me a bolt, I want to see the numbers for it. And that's what counts, and we can do that with our society now. And I've been saying the same thing for 10 years. How far do we let it go before we say enough is enough, and we demand, and of course we actually generate it ourselves, a different system? Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm pleased that was not talk to my mother-in-law who is here supporting me. Thank you very much, Carol. Right, she loved the white bait too, if anybody knows what that means. Yes, right. Okay, next can we have Latham Martin, please.
Well, good evening, everyone, and thank you to the organisers for this event. And I'd also like to wish the fellow candidates all the best for standing for this election and the upcoming result. I'm Latham Martin, I'm standing for Mayor of Westland. I know how things work within council, what needs to change, and how to do it. I bring to the mayoralty experience and knowledge gained from 9 years as a Westland District Councillor, Deputy Mayor, Chair of Council committees, companies, and community organisations. Westland is in my DNA. I come from generations of West Coast farmers and business owners and I was very privileged to grow up in Hokitika, where I now live with my fiancée Phoebe. We give freely of our time to our community and many organisations and charitable causes. I'm extremely proud of my involvement in developing many amazing community assets for our community with other volunteers in Westland, particularly DWC Westland Sports Hub, Lazar Park Hall, Community Gardens and Playground, and the Westland High School Hall and Administration rebuild. They're just some of the projects that I've worked on. When I joined the board of Westland High School, the school was really struggling. After 5 years of strong leadership, the school has regained its standing in our community. Strong governance, financial oversight, change management, and a team culture ensured this occurred. The school is rebuilt in every sense of the word and is financially in the black. I bring this proven track record of improvement to the role as Mayor. I will lead a hard-working, connected and community-focused council that listens, responds and is accountable. Under my leadership, council activities will be completely reviewed, focusing on consolidation, improvements and savings. We face tough economic times and complex challenges moving forward, including Three Waters, resource management and local government reform. You deserve a mayor who understands, pushes back on government and bureaucracy and works tirelessly for Westland. With your vote and the support of the other councillors around the table, I will limit rate rises to a maximum of 5%, prioritise debt repayment, cap council staff numbers, review every budget line, refocusing expenditure on core services and take back control of our council. Over the past 9 years, council has obtained tens of millions of dollars of external funding that's been used to offset debt and rates. Without this strategic focus in obtaining external funding, council's debt would be significantly higher, or alternatively, we would not have nearly the quality of new infrastructure or upgraded infrastructure that we have now. I'm extremely well connected locally and nationally and will continue to ensure external funding comes to Westland. Yes, we can get caught up in frivolous issues, one-way streets, bollards, K-square fences, etc. But in my opinion, they're all distractions from the real bigger issue. I have a thorough understanding of the shortcomings of the council that I've been part of. I can see where the shortfalls are and where we need to go next. The new mayor and council need to demarcate the line between governance and management clearly, undertake much more effective and engaging community consultation, cite and approve detailed budgets, and then support and hold staff accountable for the implementation of the annual and long-term plans. Implementing a portfolio system that closely connects councillors with activities of council will increase communication, governance monitoring and reporting to the public. The last 9 years has included many learning opportunities and provided me with an excellent understanding of the needs and wants of Westland communities and the difference and how to fund them. I'm not afraid of being a face for difficult issues and making tough decisions. I'm standing with a comprehensive policy framework for every activity of council. You can find them on the brochure, that pamphlet you've received tonight, and also on my website, lathammartin.co.nz. I'm passionate about Westland and committed to our district. To deliver a better future for Westland, I seek your support. Please vote Latham Martin for Mayor, for experience and results for Westland. Thank you very much.
Three minutes, 58.6 seconds. Well done, Latham. Very good. Yep. Next, can I please have Helen Lash? I've just met tonight. She's a lovely lady, but I'm not biased. Okay.
Thanks, Joe. Good evening to you all. Please excuse my voice. I'm just a bit croaky. Our love of Westland and concern for the path Council has been on has seen us return to the coast and myself stand for the Mayoralty. I understand the region, the communities, the diversity of the people of Westland, and I care deeply about its future. I'm also fortunate to be able to give 100% to the position of Mayor, which it will need. I will be a strong advocate for the region, its growth and its success, taking Westland forwards on a positive footing. So some of the issues we currently face and what we need to be focusing on moving forwards. Rates. The affordability of rates is a key issue for everyone. Rates are now unaffordable for many. The financial struggle is very real out there. We pay significant charges for very little in return. We must look at the charges applicable to each component that makes up the rates. What are these figures based on? Why are they set so high? Can we afford to reduce them? What does Westland District Council require financially to deliver its core services well without bringing Council's responsibilities to a halt? Rates must be given a full focus moving forwards, saving where we can, reducing if possible. Debt. We must prioritise debt repayment, but to do this, we must recognise the level of debt currently carried by Council and what's attributed to it, how we plan to manage the debt and the ability of Council to perform within its means. This will set the platform for all work moving forwards, ensuring we do so responsibly. Our debt has increased by $10 million in the last 3 years, with nothing of substance to show for it. This type of behaviour is unsustainable if Westland is to have a buoyant future. Council must remove itself from land and property development and must stop spending on frivolous concepts that aren't affordable. Any recent purchases must be reviewed with an eye to selling. Bring in property developers, but do not tax the ratepayer further with excessive spending outside of council business. The CCOs need to be reviewed for efficiency and viability. Council was guarantor to any debt incurred by these entities, so you, the ratepayer, have the right to know exactly what the financial performance looks like. Western District Council performance, staffing levels versus efficiencies versus cost. Council's performance levels must be closely monitored and addressed where necessary. If we want to encourage investment in the region, we must ensure all aspects within Council are streamlined, efficient and effective. All outgoing charges must reflect the value of service provided. Council must become more accessible and more user-friendly. Communications need to be inclusive, using media formats compatible and accessible to all. Working alongside our communities and addressing their needs will be a key factor moving forwards, along with consultation. Consultation needs to be effective and there needs to be a lot more of it. Under my leadership, public excluded meetings will only be used for what they are intended, to protect legally or commercially sensitive information, and that only. The yearly review of the annual plan needs to be an open book for everyone. This is your plan. This is where Council makes some heavy decisions on your behalf. This is where your rates are spent, and this is where we must learn to live within our financial means, so it's important that you are involved in this process. So moving forwards, if we address the issues, understand what we can afford and deliver on core services within our means, we can then acknowledge what else we can afford moving forwards and start that process. And just maybe we can rebuild the trust between the ratepayers and communities with Council. There will be challenges to face in the future, the review of the RMA, local government reform, the completion of the 3 waters, etc., and there will be a lot more along the line. And to do this, we need to be united as a council and as a region to face these challenges. We will listen to and work with those we represent, allowing us to tackle what's ahead, knowing that the right decisions are being made. Change is needed at Council's table. To continue down the same path would mean a repetition of what's been. Under my leadership, if we stick to a tight, responsible governance program, I don't see any reason why we can't turn things around while we begin focusing on our future. A positive, resilient, forward-thinking future. Say that for me. Go on.
Westland is, sorry, I'm going to do this, but Westland is an outstanding place to live. I agree, right? What we put into Westland is what we get out of it. I agree. So let's start focusing on what we want our future to look like and work towards that. Do you get my vote? Thank you, that's right.
Thank you, darling.
Okay, fantastic. Next, can I please have Te Aroha Nui, please, known as T.C. Cook.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you for your attendance tonight, because I appreciate that your time is valued. So why am I standing as a mayoral candidate for the Westland District? I'm standing for you, the heart of Westland, because I'm concerned that that heartbeat is starting to get weak. Through the decision-making processes of the current council and past, we are starting to suffer from decisions made or not made, particularly in costs of infrastructure and renewals. As you're aware, or most will be aware, I am currently a manager within the staff of council. For me to take the decision to stand as a councillor means a significant drop in salary, because as has been raised before, in terms of what mayor and councillors get for the task required of them, it is quite poor. But that is my dedication, because of my level of frustration in terms of wanting to see Westland move forward and have a future. It is about recognising the gateways in Westland, Otira, Kamara Junction, Haast, not forgetting that just because those communities are remote, but making sure that we actually highlight them so that we encourage people to enter our district from all quarters and be able to stay and enjoy what we have. In terms of the platforms that I'm standing on, it is affordable rates. Being a staff member, I get to see in terms of what comes forward from public consultation, as weak as that has been, and then in terms of the wish lists that come in from councillors and wish lists that come in from other members of the public as well. But there needs to be more strategy and more direction and leadership. And as your mayor, that is what I intend to do in terms of leading a team who become more strategised. We need to ensure that we engage with you, the heart of Westland. It is about allowing you to stand up and to be counted, for your opinions to actually count and for us to reflect your decision-making processes. In terms of debt reduction, it is critical that while we can attain funding from external resources, we should not be doing that if it means that the difference in contribution has to be met from rates. We should only be doing that in terms of projects that are supported by you, once again, the heart of Westland. In terms of core services, there is a lack of planning within staff and from council. We need to ensure that we have a rotational footpath program in terms of renewal and replacements, the same with roading, the same with water services and delivery. And one of my key components is about protecting local democracy. Three Waters, that is theft by design. Having come from Hawke's Bay, I know where that originated from with the Havelock North water pollution that we had there and impacting, and that has turned into a complete, utter beast in terms of taking away assets, taking away the financial value of those assets for council and losing control. But the biggest cheek is that when they put it in place, they will expect us as a council to send out whatever the cost is in terms of invoicing for that. So it will still be seen as a cost managed by council, even though by separate entities. In terms of SNAs, that is theft by every other means. To state that for people who have bought a property and who have chosen to retain the native beauty that it has, to only be told that because of that you will now be penalised and not able to use the land the way you might want to in your future. Oh, and here's the kicker, but if we do that and you're an SNA, you may still have to pay rates on land that you cannot use. That is not fair process. That is local government being enforced by central government to impose rules that are unpalatable. I ask you to take the time to go to my website in terms of heartofwestland.com or email me at heartofwestland@gmail.com. I am going to be there for you. I will be present and I bring a wealth of experience. Thank you for your time.
Well, there were some fantastic speeches there, and I was very, very impressed. There was lots of issues that I didn't know about, but that's okay. That's what we're here for, right? Fantastic. Now, we have a couple of questions that were, in fact, put into here, right? Mayoral candidate Lathan Martin wrote in the Hokitika Guardian on the 29th of August, quote, "Some councillors work very hard before, during and between meetings. As we know from experience, others do not. In light of that statement, and to be sure I don't waste my vote on a lazy future councillor, can you ask each candidate if they are one of the councillors Mr Martin is referring to?" It gets better, right? You can ask Mr Martin to please name the people he is referring to, and that's Mr Cliff Beaumont, who used to be my school teacher. Right, thank you, Cliff. Right. Is there any answers to that? No. I didn't think it was really... I'm sure everybody works hard. I know they do, right? Right. What are you going to do about supporting the health of our Westland people? With the demise of the DHB board members, who of you, if not all of you, is going to be active for people's health and welfare, because I observe this is disappointingly remiss of my current council. Would anybody like to answer that? Yep. Well, what are you going to do about supporting the health of the Westland people? Come in, sir. Thank you.
Okay, I don't want to go on and on about the same thing, but we need to ask a bit deeper question. Why are we sick in the first place? What is it that makes us sick? Why do we need so much health care services and we expect it to come out of Wellington? All our ailments, they ultimately come from the money system itself, from our stress and our pollution and the wrong foods and alcohol and everything else. We shouldn't even be sick in the first place. We don't need more Band-Aids, we need a healthy start. Thank you.
I'll just give them a maximum of a minute or 30 seconds.
May I?
Yes. So I think we're going to get a maximum of 30 seconds to cover.
Well-being is one of the criteria for the Better Off funding. It's really hard to see anyone. Is one of the criteria for Better Off funding, and I would like to see that being a focus for where we put the money from the Better Off funding, which comes from Three Waters. We've got a big list coming up shortly that we need to make decisions on, and that needs to be a big part of it. Yeah.
Sure. Yes. Jane, hopefully they can help out the eyesight. I think this comes down to a communication and engagement, again, with central government, and we need someone that can do that, because at the end of the day, they're setting what's happening, and we'll need to be engaged with it to make sure that Westland's getting the best outcomes for its people, especially when it's around health.
As some may be aware, the West Coast has actually been chosen as a pilot program for the new Whataora in terms of health. As part of that, Council was invited to contribute and make sure that we are looking at collectively, but not just health in isolation. As already mentioned by Jane Neal, it's in terms of the whole encompassment of wellbeing and how we tie that in so we're not focusing on one key element. How do we reduce the impacts on people's health in the first place to ensure that we have the delivery systems in place going forward?
The question is not a regional council function, but I have fought for the central government trying to take over local democracy. It's one of the raft of things that government are forcing upon us, and it's just overwhelming for councils to try and keep up with, and I will fight against that, as a community member.
I think the role of Mayor obviously is to lead a team of councillors and lead the council as an organisation, but it has an advocacy component for the people of Westland and ensuring that advocacy voice is heard and often that is around social issues. Health and our input and the community's wellbeing really does start at community grassroots level, of which I'm really connected. So I can almost pick that this question's come from Terry G, and Terry, happy to have a conversation with you about this matter, but absolutely the Mayor's role is around advocacy and support for the betterment of the Westland District.
You're never going to have good health while they're dropping poison into your water.
Yeah, that's absolute best speech, shorter speech, perfect. Right. This question here, what aspect of the business case, if there was one, for the purchase of the Paki Waitara building conceived you to vote for its purchase? And how do you feel about that purchase decision now? And I think that must be for the current sitting members.
I didn't vote for it.
Thanks, Stephen. So I did vote in favour of purchasing the building, and it was done on the basis of consolidation of the eyesight, library and museum activities, and that was the business case that was presented to Council, and that was supported by the Council. In light of that, there has been significant changes in our economy. We've gone through some significant disruption, and we've got some different challenges and focuses ahead of us. One of the things that, and I know there's only 30 seconds, we could talk about this for 3 hours, this matter, but one of the big issues was the fact that the museum funding that was obtained required the museum to stay in its current building, the Carnegie building. So there's multiple components of this. I'm standing here saying I voted in support of purchasing that building. That building or that site, it becomes part now of a much more strategic plan and review that needs to happen for all of council buildings, which are mostly all earthquake prone and going to need significant investment, and we need a cost-benefit business case on whether we actually continue to pour money into buildings that aren't fit for purpose, or we look at consolidation. So that's my 30 seconds on that one.
Okay, don't go away. You've got a question again. Tanka, can you please sit down too?
Oh, do you want me to sit down or stand
Yeah, sit down, please, second. Right, this question is for Latham. You have pledged to make sure staff numbers will not increase. Can you explain how you will do this in a position of governance?
Quite easy, really. You develop key performance indicators for the chief executive, and governance sets the budget. So the budget has a staffing component throughout all activities of council, and that budget is set by the governance team. Does that answer the question? Yep, so we set the budget. We determine the staff will request or put forward a case around staffing and the numbers, staffing numbers and the quantum of the salary required for a role and the benefit that role would provide, and then it's up to elected members to decide if that goes in the budget. And I'm saying no, we can't afford any more staff at this time for the next 3 years.
Sorry, Mr. Tanka, right? Sorry, I cut you off, right?
I'll just move up. Just on the ex-Mountain Jade building, I support what Latham has said. I voted for it, but what Latham failed to mention, that we did have a report on that building right at the start from 2 contractors in town, a builder and a plumber. And these contractors, you will know these contractors, they're well used in Hokitika, and their reports said that the building was a sound building, apart from leaks in it, and then later on we had those engineer inspections. The rest of it, what Latham said, is going to be reviewed. Thank you.
While not a councillor in terms of voting on the issue, obviously as Regulatory Services Manager at the time and having the functions of library and museum under my belt, I was involved in the process. What we need going forward, however, is a sound business case in terms of what the future of Paki Waitara actually holds. If it holds community value in terms of filling gaps for things that we can provide that are currently missing within Hokitika itself and service the community to its benefit, fine. However, if it's going to go in the line as it is now in terms of being a commercial business, that is not the business of council. Council should not be in commercial enterprise and therefore it needs to be sold.
Climate change is becoming more of an issue for communities nationwide. If you were elected to council, how would you ensure Westland would plan and respond to the effects of climate change, i.e., or e.g., an increase in extreme weather events, sea level rising, etc., which I see 35 years later down at this tip. So any questions, any answers on that one?
The climate is always changing. I don't think it's an issue at all. But what is an issue is 1080 turns into methyl fluoride, which punches a hole in the ozone layer, and that's never been acknowledged. And that's from Margie Jarman, and that she's a doctor, yeah.
Yeah, and in terms of the climate change, you know, the council, we've certainly got to future-proof the communities on climate change. You know, we have a plan from the regional council to protect the flooding on the river and seawall protection, but that's been a year and a half away. We need to act on that now. If we get an event like they did up in Nelson or in the Buller or even in Canterbury there at Ashburton, if we get one of those in the Whitcomb Valley up in the crop that comes down, it would come through the town area, through the milk powder factory. We need to act on that right now.
Yeah, I mean, what Tanker says is right. We need to act. We also need to consider what the long-term future is, because we have people, climate change may be a cycle, it may be something to do with the amount of carbon dioxide we're putting in the air. I'm not going to argue that, but what I'm arguing is that climate is changing. We're getting more intense rainfalls, higher sea levels rising. We need to do something about that. And the big issue is that with the sea level rising, so does the groundwater, and so therefore does our level of protection decreases. We have to figure out how high those walls are going to go before it costs us too much money or we lose too much amenity. And it becomes a community thing. It's not just for us councillors, it really depends on what the community wants. And the big issue is who's going to pay for it. Because councillors can only pay so much, ratepayers can only pay so much, has to be central government, insurance companies, because we can't give up our communities. We have to protect our communities, but we also have to plan for the future. 50 years' time, we might not be able to be down this low end of town. We have to plan for it, so we have to have somewhere to go to.
I think my answer to this is yes, supporting climate change initiatives in part, protecting our townships and residents from the impact of significant weather events and natural disasters is a core function of council. And I'm in support of future-proofing our infrastructure and developing a fit-for-purpose EOC or Emergency Operations Centre, probably at the Hokitika Airport, which we currently don't have a compliant building to run an EOC out of. I'm much more in favour of that than doing a whole lot of virtue signalling, purchasing EVs and developing climate strategies. Thank you.
There's no denying that climate change is here for whatever reason. and I believe that Hokitika needs a flood protection scheme to protect it. While some are actually advocating for moving away to higher ground, the realism is the cost of relocating just a few buildings in town. Look at the cost of moving this building would be astronomical. If I look at the Greymouth Flood Protection Scheme, which I had a lot of input into as a contractor, the Mackie Street flood wall, I built that. If you look at the Greymouth Flood Protection Scheme, it's a testament of what can be done. Who knows what's going to happen in 50 years? The Alpine Fault might move the sea, we might all rise up 5 metres. So I believe we need to get strong counsel from the Regional Council to advocate for protection for our communities, especially Hokitika, Franz and Westport, and that's why I'm standing.
As your group controller for West Coast Civil Defence Emergency Management, I'm well versed in terms of the impacts that Mother Nature is having on the West Coast as a whole, plus wider New Zealand. It is easy for us to focus just in terms of the river and sea inundation, but also have concerns for our remote southern Westland areas in terms of Fox Glacier and Franz Josef Glacier. The receding on those in terms of the key things that bring tourism to those districts. We need to try and work with central government in terms of policy and planning that works for the benefit of all. We are not in a position where we can reverse the damage that we have done, but it would be foolish not to put plans in place and follow strategies that will help us to at least slow the damage. The generations ahead for our great-great-grandchildren and what they are going to walk into are going to be things that we couldn't possibly perceive. Let's try and collectively come together in terms of what's the benefit for all.
As we've heard, the Regional Council is very much in this space. We have certainly put a lot of effort into flood protection improvements, if you like, in this last term, and that would be going, certainly that's a big focus for me, is providing protection for our communities. But there's only so much money that we can put at that as well, so it has to be a combination of protection and long-term planning to try and incentivise, if you like, or slowly redirect development into places where it's less likely to be an issue in the future, because we just need to get a bit more long-term in our thinking as well. So I think it's a combination of all of those things. Thank you.
Well, as a district councillor, it's not really my place to say exactly what we would do, but my job as a councillor would certainly be to learn and support the governance decisions that are made by council. But I would point out that, you know, we're at a little bit of a crossroads here, because the regional council and the district council have very clear responsibilities, and the flood protection is really an obligation of the regional council, and I think the district council would do well to hold their feet to the fire and make sure they do what we need. But just before I do go, I'll say, having opened up the Gord Creek exposure of the Alpine Fault and having guided thousands of people to it, I have a fairly clear understanding of that feature of Westland, and it is probably the main feature, because the Alpine Fault is why the fragility of the rocks and why we get so much aggregation on the rivers and so on, which is contributing largely to our problems. That's not going to go away. So, you know, with that sort of knowledge, I would certainly be contributing at the council table to be able to explain with a reasonable amount of in-depth knowledge as to why we should respect that.
Again, if we kind of look below the surface a little bit, where did the climate harm come from in the first place? You know, we can't have tourism, can we? No, we can't do that, because that adds to the climate problems. We can't have more consumption. We can't have more construction. We can't have more transport. All those things, you know, it starts to make sense now. I mean, it's fantastic to see that everybody is acknowledging that this is actually happening. You know, having run in Nelson as well, where 3 years ago they declared a climate emergency, which was great, at the same time as they opened the new airport terminal. Fantastic. We've got to do a bit better than that. Really, it gets very simple. If you get confused about it, ask a 12-year-old. A 12-year-old understands what is real. That's wood and metal and electricity and concrete and steel and the things that we actually need. Business, tourism, affordability, they're not even real. And if anybody uses the word economics when we're talking about responses to climate change, I'm afraid they're just not up with the game. That's not good enough. We're talking about long-term plans, strategy. Imagine operating an airline that way. Oh yeah, we're hoping for it. I hope those bulks stay in. We've got to do better than that, and now we can. As a voluntary society, we're not going to put our energy into new petrol stations or new liquor stores or new hotels, are we? As volunteers, we've got the equipment, we've got the building materials, we've got the diggers and the computers and the knowledge to build, relocate, whatever it takes. But everyone's flat out trying to get some money, aren't they, just to pay some bills.
Okay, good. Right. Question. Has any candidate been offered the position of Deputy Mayor by a mayoral candidate? Who's that snickering down there? I don't know who that is. Anybody would like to answer that? Has there been any candidates been offered the position of Deputy Mayor by a mayoral candidate? No. Oh, yes? Yep. Helen Lash, yes. Yep. Anybody else? Mr. Eatwell? I'm just putting That's right, you haven't been offered. Chris, have you been offered? No. No, okay. Right. Okay. I'll do that one. Okay. This one come over the weekend. Maintaining respect for Westland District Council as it impacts all of us ratepayers is important. We live in a district with a small population and a large area, and like others, similar areas, rumours are part of life. My question, can each mayoral candidate confirm they are not the subject of any investigation which proven would bring Westland District Council and our District Council into disrepute? I didn't know I was answering the quite tough questions. Oh, okay. Right. You don't live here.
Yeah, but I didn't inhale. Yeah. Why would we even have anything? The whole thing is the wrong way round, isn't it? You know, why would anybody even want to run for office if it weren't for the right reasons? And so we find people in the wrong job. This money thing, it affects every single relationship that we have, even those with our children and our partners. The work relationships become immediately toxic because basically it's a battle between you and your employer. It's a battle between the supplier and the customer, the taxpayer and the welfare recipient. Because of money, we want to be on the same side, but this is an adversarial, competitive system that makes everybody have to fight their own corner first. And we're seeing how dirty it's getting now with drugs and crime, and we're predating upon ourselves, aren't we, with gangs and violence and abuse and the misery that this causes whilst this fantastic abundance goes to waste around us because we're trying to get those tokens.
Thank you. Can we please have the lights to the side? Right. We're now going to open up for any questions from the floor. Again, because our lovely candidates have stuck to the rules. Very impressed with that. We haven't gone over time. We will do the same for the audience, only because want to make sure we get home and we don't want to be here until all hours, and that the staff of the theatre need to go home, which out of respect. They also have a family as well, so it's not a bun fight. This is actually just a meeting of people, so I thought that would be a thing. We have a first question from up there. Anybody?
I'd like to ask the question that I submitted before that you started to call out, and I'd particularly like to ask it now, given that candidate Ray pointed out that there were only two things that could be done. One was to cut projects, and the other was to increase the rates. I'd like to think that there's a third option, which is becoming more efficient with the way that we deal with the money. So my question is, the council spends about $30 million a year. The CCOs spend $30 or $40 million a year, and that money is managed by people who we don't elect, and probably most of us don't even know. So I'd like to know what councillors feel, or candidates feel, ratepayers are benefiting from with the relationship with the CCOs, and also would they support a review of the whole CCO process?
So just on that first note, Stephen, what I said was if we cap the rates at 5% and inflation is 6.9, then we'd either have to cut services or borrow more. Yep, I'm all for efficiencies, and we'll become more efficient, you're dead right. Just your $30 million spending, that's turnover if you're talking about West Roads. And as far as I'm aware, this year they're going to return a profit to the shareholder, being... Yeah, last year didn't go so good. Something about a virus because of the money. So, yeah, that's now passed, and they seem to be back straight working for us again. And also Destination Westland returned a tidy profit last year as well. Reviewing the CCOs, when elected, if the councillors around me want to do a revision of the CCOs, I'm all for it. But being on Westland Holdings Board, I've got a clear understanding of where they're at, and I believe they're in good stead. I think I only get one question, Bird. Does he get two questions?
So you're saying that the CCOs spend all that money, then I'm not disputing that they spent the money and made the profit. What I'm asking is, what was the benefit to the ratepayers?
Normally about 500,000.
Stephen, I've got grave concerns on the CCOs, and I'd certainly like to see a serious review done, because of my term on council last time, we had a great deal of difficulty getting access to information on the CCOs and their performance. Council has transferred a lot of land ownership, pensioner flats and so forth through to Destination Westland, which gives them an asset base to borrow against. The actual true debt of the CCOs is something that's not known by most of us, and that, we've got to bear in mind, is something that council is liable for if things go pear-shaped. So that actually gets added on to council's debt. So the true debt could be up around the 48, 50 million, I don't know, but I think we have a right to know those figures, because at the end of the day, we're the ones that are accountable, and we're the ones that are entitled to the information. These are our businesses. You are the ratepayers. You are basically the owners of what council does. Council is answerable to you, and that means the CCOs are too. And there's a lot of information in there that's hidden away. It's been hidden away. We fought like hell to get it when I was on council with councillors Neil and Eatwell. It shouldn't be that hard. And my general feeling was back then was that if information's being hidden from you and it's not transparent, there must be a reason. And generally you're inclined to think of an unhealthy reason. But I do agree, we have to have a review, we have to get things out in the open so we have the confidence in those CCOs if they're to carry on. But the amount of assets that have been transferred through to the CCO worries me, because it's assets that council had, it's creating income for the CCOs that council used to use and we are now devoid of. So we need to get a very open, transparent system going in there, because there's a lot of stuff that's gone on, and it's pretty scary as to what we don't know.
Well, from my viewpoint and from my observation is that the CCOs certainly do need a very serious investigation. And some of the main points really I would say here at this juncture, and that is that a CCO is a council-controlled organisation. And simply what has been happening is our CCOs have not been controlled by council or the governance group. Now that is not what was intended when statute was laid down for to allow councils to have these such companies. And what has happened in recent times is there's been quite a lot of property that's been owned by the CCOs that has been sold. Now, the ratepayer who has the shares in those companies wouldn't have a clue how much money, where it went, and has it contributed or helped to offset some of their rates. Now, whatever the outcome is from the investigation, and I don't think anyone can preempt that, but what has to happen is the council as a governance group, we have to consider our statutory obligation to provide the core services. Now, that may definitely involve some of the actual mechanics of what the CCOs are involved in now, but it certainly needs to be done in a way that it's service to the community and the ratepayer, and certainly not on a commercial basis.
CCOs for councils are a catch-22. When they are returning a dividend to council, everybody is out there with accolades in terms of they're fantastic, it helps to offset costs on projects or the rates. When they are having down years, then it's about cost and let's bring services back into council. But in bringing those services back into council, that means an increase in rates also, because we then accumulate in terms of the overheads, employee costs and other such things that are attributed to that. In terms of West Roads, it's a competitive tender market in terms of contracts that are available to them, and it gives us the opportunity to employ local as well and give back to local, people who may be sitting here in this room tonight. If we take that away, we lose an opportunity in terms of competitive pricing, because people who are coming in from outside of the district realise we no longer have a choice. And anyone who's trying to get resources from outside of the district that you cannot source here in Westland or even Hokitika or our neighbouring Greymouth, you know what those costs and expenses look like. Yes, there is a need for a review in terms of what are the expectations from council, what become the triggers for concern, and when might there need to be a shift in the modelling. But in terms of CCOs as a whole, we need to look at bigger picture, because we could actually make things more detrimental to ourselves.
Well, that's a pretty hard act to follow. CCOs can be controlled through a statement of intent. Like every council-controlled organisation has to do a statement of intent about what they intend to do, how they're going to meet those obligations. I believe that they do need to have a review. Like somebody said to me the other day, said, why have we got West Roads? Like Grey District hasn't got a roading company. Like, are they going to the pack? I don't know, I'll ask Councillor Haddock. I don't think they are. And all the different organisations that are in Destination Westland, like the Wild Foods Festival and all those things, I think we need to look at every single thing that's in there and see if it's the best place for it, and is it the best way to get a return to the ratepayers. And, you know, talking about dividends, I think the dividends there's a subvention payment which is paid from a profit-making company to a loss-making company, and then a dividend's paid. But council needs to control that dividend. You can't have a year where they're paying nothing just because they run at a loss. What about all the years where they make a huge profit and then they limit the dividend that they pay to council? We've got to actually state what they're going to pay and how they do that. So I'm not quite sure how we do that. That's why we want to review.
Yeah, I agree with Helen mainly, but I'm really concerned about West Roads. You've got a CEO who's paid more than the council CE. You've got 19 staff that earn more than $100,000 compared to 11 at the council. it's non-contestable. The council just turns up and pays West Roads. I think the CCOs do need reviews. I'm really concerned about Destination Westland with the assets that are transferred in there, the debt that Helen's referred to. Those pensioner housing could disappear. So we definitely need a review of CCOs.
There's a common thread, isn't there? Boy, we need a review. Oh, yeah. But I'm talking a much, much bigger review, because a review of anything in council is going to cost money, isn't it? Who's going to do the review? Who reviews the reviewers? It just goes on and on and on, doesn't it? I mean, I agree with Tiara, catch-22, but it's not really a catch-22, is it? It's only because we allow it to be a catch-22. From our perspective, there's no catch-22s. We just need to look outside these little boxes that we're told we have to operate within, and suddenly it gets really easy. And I refuse to accept any excuses at all. No catch-22, no the best we can do, no that's all we can afford. It's all a scam. It's a complete scam, and we're falling for it hook, line and sinker. We refuse to leave anybody behind. Not one. There's no excuses anymore. We can do so much better. Thank you.
I think in the last 9 years we've had 3 CCO reviews, and they've all cost a lot of money, and they've all led to a very similar outcome. There are tax advantages and there are benefits for the way the system is structured. It's up for the new council to decide whether those activities should be delivered in-house by a CCO or delivered at all by a council. And you'll see in my manifesto I'm really clear on where I see or where I would like to lead council in terms of this vision for the CCOs. I really support removal of bureaucracy from the CCOs. We have a level of a board that we do not require, in my opinion, and I'd like the council's support to remove the independent board of Westland Holdings and appoint councillors and the chairs of the 2 companies to that. It's just a simple, that is effectively an administrative board and is about a $90,000 cost that in my opinion is unnecessary, but that's up for the new council to decide. That those skilled directors that sit on that company can be put in and made available to the other boards within that organisation on a rotational basis. I really support Westlanders and West Coasters being on the boards of our companies. I really do not support flying people in from all over the countryside to attend board meetings. I think it's an absolute waste of money, and there are a lot of skilled people in our region and our district that could actually add value and benefit to those boards and break up the old boys network. That's my thoughts.
Just to make a correction there, Latham, is that the CCOs haven't been reviewed as far as their financial performance by council. It's been their structure that's been reviewed. That's all that has been reviewed, nothing else.
That was a good question, Stephen, that Charlie and I were going to use last. I did hear somebody say that they were trying to get rid of the pensioners' flats. I think that's terrible because I can see myself in about 10 or 15 years having to use them. So, and maybe a few other people here, so I don't think that should be fair. Now, have we got any other questions out there that might be wanting to be answered? Because we're actually running to time. We're doing very good, right? I'm seriously impressed. We're done? Oh, we're done. Okay, rightio. Well, on that, I would like to thank all the, not contestants, but contestants, pretty close, candidates for a lovely night. Sticking to time, being eloquent and taking everything to think. And I'd like to thank everybody here today for coming along. If you have any questions, I'm sure there is other ways and I won't mention them here, but you can, and I know I've met these people tonight for the first time, and if you do need to go and ask them a question, I'm sure they're all very open. You can put that in the paper. Thank you. Yeah? Yes. Yeah. So thank you very much. And again, a plug for next week, come to the Dramatics show, but thank you very much.